So next, let's continue with how jQuery can store elements selections in a jQuery variable. The reason is that we may want to temporarily store the selections. For example, maybe one element, maybe a list of elements, temporarily store them into a jQuery variable. Later, we may just use it, maybe use it for further processing. So that's next we will look at how to create a variable, jQuery variable to store jQuery selections. Okay, it's similar like you create a variable to temporarily save something. Okay, so here is a similar reason. To differentiate jQuery variable from other variables, we start jQuery variables with a dollar symbol. Okay, so that means every time you see a variable started with dollar variables, that will be a jQuery variable, not the common ones. For example, in the DOM document object model, when we look at, we may temporarily store some element, create an object for it, variable for it to save the object. That will not start with a dollar sign. Okay? So here is one example. var means variable, and then dollar sign titles equal to dollar dot title. So that means we want to save all the all the elements with the title attribute or property, title attribute, to save them into a jQuery variable. The name of the jQuery variable called dollar titles. So dollar titles is the variable name, and the dot title is the CSS style selector to retrieve elements with this type of property. Means they have of course, usually we said that this is the title, can retrieve all the titles. Let's have a closer look at the CSS style selectors. I just want to mention on the book, which I also share with you, the book chapter, we have a complete list of CSS style selector for jQuery. You can just read the complete list there. And also we have a complete list for the methods, that means the functions provided by jQuery, which can help us to process the elements. Okay, so here we give one example to show what is the CSS style selector, to give you some more complicated ones. The first one is here. So var $author equal to dollar means jQuery for here, because it's after in front of parentheses, in pair of parentheses. Inside is quoted CSS style selectors. So what is CSS style? That is the color, red color one. So it's this power sign means we want to find the ID, cut ID, and then author. So it means the ID is author. Okay, so we want to find the elements. Of course, here we didn't say it is one element. We may have a list. So just but here, just because we have to differentiate each ID in one web document, HTML document, that means of course unique. Okay, we must be unique. So in fact, you can only have one. Okay, for here. So the ID is author. So we find element with the ID, which ID attribute is author, and put this element, provide a reference to this element into author jQuery object called $author. Okay, $author. So this one we have the reference to it, and also maybe we can do something based on this jQuery object. That will be the method provided by jQuery as well. So let's look at one even more complicated example for CSS style selectors. So the definition for the jQuery object is var $first. So $first is the name of the jQuery object, and then we perform jQuery to retrieve the elements to save into this jQuery variable. So what is the CSS style selector is in this parameter, so colored by the red. So it's UL unordered list, and then list $ list means the ID, right? ID. Okay. So next one is the first child. So let's look at the first one for here, because for this one you just want to find, okay, maybe you return several elements, which one you want to save only. So in fact we only have interest in the first one. So that means this is the initial retrieval, and after that we filter out others, keep only one. So let's look at here, unordered list, and then ID is power list. So this means we want to find the unordered list with the ID attribute, which is a list, right? So find an unordered list, but and also we have a requirement for the unordered list. You may have a list, many unordered lists, but you only have interest in one which has ID, because this ID will differentiate it from others. There's only one unordered list with the ID attribute is a list. Okay, because unordered list, ordered list is a list. Okay, for this one we have ID for this unordered list, which is a list. Okay, find that unordered list with the ID attribute, it is a list. And then we, for this unordered list, we only have interest in the first list item in this unordered list. Okay, so that means we just return the first child, because for this unordered list you have a multiple list item. Okay, you just find the first item and then save it into the jQuery variable. Okay, this is the CSS style selector. We use two examples to further explain, but in fact you can just find a list of things, so which you can find on the shared chapter uploaded to the canvas. I also put just create the link to it in the previous announcement. I made a mistake when I shared the document, so now it's corrected. But anyway, you can still find on the textbook textbook subfolder on the files folder. Okay, so this is the list of CSS style selectors. So it's a lot of them, right? So you can take a look at each of them. Just know how can you find the elements. In fact, you can find each one of them. And also, in fact, you can also take a look at the methods which are listed here. So of course later we just study some of them, but here it's just a list of the list of them. Okay, this is for this example. We cover maybe effects, but not maybe event, maybe not effects and animation due to the time. Okay, let's continue with getting and setting information. So that means you want to get the contents in element and also change the content. How can we make it? So in fact we have two methods for this one. For the first one is called HTML function method. So this one will get the content of the selection, and also we need to make sure it only return the content of the first element in the matched set. That means for HTML we are not, for example, if it's a list item, it will only return the content of the first list item. Okay. Another thing is that because this is HTML content, means it will also include the format information. So that means not only the text, it also have the tag. Okay, have the tag. So, for example, like this one. This means we first select the list item. Okay, put them into a variable called jQuery variable. Of course, he didn't have it explicitly, but we have just have found a list item for here because there's only one is enough. Though you have a list of them, because we only use the HTML, so we retrieve the first list item content, including the item. Okay, the tag, the li and li. Okay, so that means so we are just include all of them. Okay, but only the first one. Later we'll give an example. So just to compare them, we'll finish next first. So the other one is get the text only. So this one we don't want to have keep the formatting information. We only have interest in the text. Okay, get the text content only. So there's no tag information. But also need to mention this one we get the text content information for all the matched elements. Okay, but excluding the markup. So that means the previous one, the .html is first, but this one is all. Okay, that's the difference. This one is including the format. This is no formatting information. Okay, so that's the difference. For example, for this one, we only retrieve the text content of the first list item. Okay, I think this one is something wrong. In fact, it will get all the. I will correct this one. Get the text content of all the list, all the list items. Later you will see example. Okay, so we need to correct this one. This is all the list. That's also difference between the .html and .text. Okay, let's look at the examples. So the first example, so is for the get HTML fragment, and then this is the JavaScript code. So let's look at, in fact, all the information are the same as the first example, the basic example. So difference is here, right? In fact, the difference is here only. So we change this one to be this JavaScript. We want to do some program here. What's the thing we have done here? So it's here. So you will perform such function. Okay, so jQuery inside we will perform some operation. So it's just a function, and then there's no parameter for this one, and this is the content in the function. Okay, there's no function name. So we first define a dollar. Dollar means this is jQuery variable, and then jQuery variable we retrieve the unordered list. But here we use HTML. That means we only have interest in the first unordered list. Okay, so get the content of the first unordered list, including its formatting information tag. And then after that, we'll do the following thing. So $unordered list. So that means, of course, this one we will retrieve again. So that means we find the unordered list. But here, because we are not doing HTML, so we get all the unordered list. For each unordered list, we perform append. So that means for this unordered list, we insert this content. Of course, that means it's inside of the unordered list. Okay, inside the unordered list. So for example, like this code, there's only one unordered list, and then you will insert this information, because when you perform this one, right, so this one will save what? Will save the contents within the unordered list. So that's the content. Content including the tag information Lee and backslash Lee, right? So that's the contents. And then you will just retrieve all the unordered list. For each unordered list, you will append. Append, in fact, will do before the closing tag. Okay, before the closing tag. That means later we'll see what's the different location we can do for the append. For example, insert before. You can insert before this one, after this one, and before this one, and after this one. Okay. So for the append, it's just insert in right before the closing tag. Okay. So that means for each one on order list, you will just insert this one before the closing tag. So you will repeat this for list item again. Okay. So initially, without this one, we know we show 4 list items in this menu. But after we have performed this function, you will repeat that 4 menus again. Let's look at Ctrl B. Look at, we repeat. This is the previous 4, and then we will perform this new. Okay. So this is the first example. So it's for the HTML. They will just keep all the tag information, because based on this one you can find, but it will only consider the first item. Okay, first item in the matched list. So this one only interested in the first one. Let's look at the difference between text.text and .html. So all of our others are the same, only this code is different, only this one. So this is text fragment, and then here we do this one. So this one we use .text, previously we use .html. We mentioned before .text, we retrieve all the text information for all the elements in the matched set. So it's not only the first element, will be all of them, right? So what's the text information? So you know, for this is an order list for the order list, and then all of their text information. There's only one order list here, and then what's the information? Text information only. So you just exclude all of the tag information, only keep the text. So will be fresh, fix, and then pine, nuts, honey, and this one. Because you will concatenate the text information together, and then there's no empty space. There's no empty space after this one. So you will just join this one without a space. Okay? So it's a fresh, fix. After S will be no space, will be pine, nuts, and then after S there's no empty space, so it will be honey, and then no space, and then continue with balsamic vinegar. Okay, that's the information, right? And then next we do what? Still we'll do $unordered list. Okay, we find all the matched unordered list. There's only one. Okay, and for each one we do then add this information before the closing tag. Okay, what's the bit before that? So you will have added this one. P is paragraph, and then the content is here. Okay, so you will just add a paragraph. The paragraph content will be the text information of all the matched unordered list. Okay, so that means you will right after this one add one more paragraph, and paragraph will just keep all the text information. Let's look at. Is it correct? Add a paragraph: fresh, fix, pine, nut, honey, plastic, and vinegar. Okay, seems this one has a little bit different from the old version. So now it seems better. Let me confirm. Yeah. So now is now in fact the old version in the book we will not have the space in between. So now you can find there's a space. Okay, this is the difference between different versions, jQuery version and the related HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, especially JavaScript. Okay. Anyway, we just yeah, see the difference. That's okay. Okay, this is the difference between the .html and the .text. The difference is that this is for the first, this is for all, and this one is keep all the formatting information. This one is only keep the text information. Okay, let's continue with the third example for the HTML node. Okay, so here, in fact, we want to repeat HTML text again. So do something more interesting. So here is the same as previous, and this one is the HTML code.js node.js. Let's look at what is done here. So list item $list item is not an order list, okay? So we retrieve the first list item and its HTML. Then we can find that this will be here, okay? Contain all of this one. Okay, we already found it. So next one will be $list. So this is $list item. It will retrieve all the matched list item. So all the list items, not only the first one, because we are not doing the HTML, we are doing append. Okay, for all of these items, we will do what? Append. Okay, add before the closing tag of each list item, and then we add one more information. What's the information? A piece of more information, which is italic content, and the content will be the here, okay? So that will be a list item again, okay? List item again, but we are just differentiated from the previous one. We use italic content for this one, okay? So that will be the fresh will be using italic. So for each of them, we'll do this way, okay? So let's look at. So you can find here, okay? Fresh fix and fresh fix, pine nuts, and then not pine nuts again. Okay, will be fresh fix because we only return the first. Okay, so just repeat the first HTML return content, which will be a list item. Okay, just repeat all of them again. So that's also you can find HTML or only return the first matched element. Okay. So how about next one? We want to return all of the list matched items, matched elements. So that one you need to use the text. Okay. So other things are the same. Change it here, and then we change it to be text. In the previous we use HTML. Now we use text, and the others are the same. Okay? Are the same. So list item text, and then add this one. So we just retrieve all the list items and then combine the text together, form a longer text item, and then add that information to each. This one will retrieve all the list items, and then for each of them you can think this is a loop, because this is jQuery will match all the list items, and then for each list item we will add all the information for all the four menus text information only. So you will find a longer menu which is like this. Okay, yeah, it's some difference. You can find here we don't have space here. Peanuts, don't have this one. Don't have. It seems a little bit weird. It's that this one we don't have, but the previous one we separate them. Okay. This one there's no space. Right? This one we have. This one we use a paragraph. This one we use item. Right? We use italic. Yeah, this may be the problem we will have. That sometime I think maybe we can confirm a little bit later. But here we just want to let you know the main thing is that we need to know how to use HTML and text function. These two functions. In fact, in your last homework 4, there is a program which is also related to this one. So just make sure you fully understand the text.text and .html and know their difference and know how to use it. Okay. Okay, let's stop for this example. Okay, in fact, right after our previous example, we have several slides for other related information. Due to the time, I will just skip them, but it's straightforward for you to learn by yourself. And then I want to just go ahead with the two things which will be useful for your programming for the last homework. One is for the append, the other one is changing CSS rules. Okay, so we'll skip this one, setting contents. So in fact, just use updated. And so on chaining, you can do several things together. And the checking page ready to work with. That means the code has been loaded. Use ready. So you can even ignore the ready. Just make it like this. Skip the ready. Okay. And then update. Use different things. You can HTML text replace with or something. So one is 2D already covered, and then just replace with or remove. So we want to point out this one. So append in fact is right before the closing mark, and then prepend is before the right after. This is right before. This is right after the opening tag, and then dot before is in front of the opening tag, and this one is right after the closing tag. Okay, just want to know the difference. So that we have 4 functions provided for you to do this. Okay, next one we'll look at update CSS. In fact, we have two methods. One is that maybe you want to update only one. So if like that, you can just use .css and then parentheses, and then list the properties. For example, like this one, and then use the comma, and then that's it, one. But for here, in fact, we have a list of CSS rules. So we want to update them in a collection way. So in fact, we can adopt object literal notation, means you use curly braces, and then use semicolon rather than comma. Okay, and then this is the property, this is the value. So you may want to change the values, so you just list all the changes here. Okay, seems easy, right? For example, like this one, $list item, and each one have a function which will be doing like this one, IDS this ID. So find the ID of the current list item, and then append. So of course you add an empty space. So append, that means right before the closing tag, you add the ID, correct? but use a comma, use a space to separate them. So let's look at the example. Okay, let's look at example. That will be easy to understand. So this is CSS HTML, and then in this one we have this change, cut CSS.js. Others are the same as the previous basic example we have covered before, cut. And then next one will be the things. Okay, let's look at dollar function. That means you have jQuery function. This function will be run when you run the HTML code here. And then you have a var background. So this is a common variable. Okay, common variable. You will just retrieve this information. What's the information? You will find the list item, and then for the list has a CSS background color. That means you find the background color for the list items. Okay, of course, this one will only retrieve the first one, because you cannot set separate colors to assign to one variable. So it's the first list item background color. Okay, and then write what the background color was after list. So this is in fact is very simple. We just show a piece of information in the bottom of the page. So in fact we do what you can find is under order this list, because this is the bottom of the. You can also maybe send not a button, just right after the unordered list. Okay, you will do the jQuery, just find the first find all the unordered list, and then append. That means a paragraph. The paragraph will show the color was what was the background color. So the first list of the background color will be shown here. So color was what's the background color. Okay. Of course, this one will show in a format RGB, and then the value of the RGB. So this is based on the default value to show a color. Okay, and then you can use the curly space. That means the object literary rotation to update all the CSS rules you want to do. For example, background color you want to change to this one. Border you want to have a one pixel solid, and then the color of the border. So you insert border in between, or you change the color or change the size. Okay, and then the color for the text, and the shadow, whether you have text shadow or not, no. And the font you want to use Georgia, and then padding left. For left you add a plus 75. That means you add more padding to the left. Okay, let's look at the running result and also the difference from previous. So this is the. Okay, let me use the other one to show. This one you cannot see the difference. Let's go to here. Okay, and then run it. So this is the new result. This is the previous result. See the difference? So you added the color was this one, just be due to the running of this code. Okay, this one. You first retrieve the list item, the first list item color. Okay, and then add it to this, and after that you change the CSS rule. Okay. So you can find what's the color. Is it the old color or is it new color? So you compare the previous is like red, cut RGB, and this one, in fact, this is the, because CSS rules, you change the CSS rules here, so the color will be to, this is text color, this is background color. In fact, that color will be this one. not the original color, because this one has been loaded, and then CSS rule will apply to the first item. So in fact, all the items will change the color to this one, so the latest color. And then you also add a border, cut, and a border in between. You also shift to the left, shift to right, add a new 75 pixels to the left, right? Padding, add padding. Then padding is just within the text box. You add a space, empty space, 75 pixels in front of it. Okay, and you may also find that the font also changed, right? Font changed, and also the color of the font, right? That's also due to this one. So you use 000 for the black. Now prefer it white, right? Because this one you have two different background color. You also need to change the font color. Okay, font size, font color, and so on. So all of these things can be done easily for here. You can find that it's easier, correct? So with jQuery, you can also do a lot of changes easily. You don't need to stick to the same CSS rules, and you may just change it according during the running stage or interactivity between the author, user, and the web pages. Okay. And right after this one, in fact, we have events, and it's straightforward. We also mentioned on some click and so on. In fact, this one you have a list of events, and then the callback function you can just just learn from them by yourself. Okay, these are a list of events: mouse over, mouse down, mouse hover. Okay, for these things, I think as long as you have experience in some programming language before, you should be able to know how to do them easily. Okay, and then for animation, we are not covered, and then for the rest, we also will not covered animation. So, okay, so basically, this is the end of this course. We have finished all the content we can finish within one semester. I think the content is really a lot, and then if you want to master this programming skill, this web programming, you have to invest more time, and do practice, do some projects, and so on. In the future, you may want to become a web programmer. You may gain more experience. Okay, and I think overall I am satisfied with this course delivery. I tried my best, but maybe you feel challenging, and maybe you find some confusions or some questions. But anyway, let's just interact. If you have any question, just feel free to let me know. I hope you enjoy the rest of your assignments, projects, and the rest of your summer time. Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate all your perseverance and your hard work. I hope everybody can get a great score for this great grade for this course, and also you learn a lot from this course. That's my main target. Okay, hope I can see you in my future classes. Thank you. Bye.